In front of more than 80 people, Ryan placed the spare key to my apartment in Blair's hand, then leaned down and kissed her. The room went silent for half a second. Then phone screens lit up all around us. I was sitting at a round table near the stage, still holding half a cup of lukewarm lemonade. Ryan's hand rested on Blair's waist. Her eyes were closed, her lashes trembling faintly, as if even being kissed were some terrible burden she had been forced to endure. Above them hung a white banner that read, "Home should feel safe." I stared at it and nearly laughed. "Welcome to Revenge Cookies. Imagine discovering that your boyfriend and your roommates have formed a pathetic little cartel to frame you for theft, steal your identity, and ruin your future, all while playing the victims. Most people would scream, cry, and fight to prove their innocence. But a truly smart woman, she doesn't argue with trash. She just packs her bags, starts recording, and lets them walk right into their own trap. Pour yourself a drink, darling." Maddie was sitting behind the presentation laptop. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. The screen suddenly went black. A second later, my own voice came through the speakers. "Don't leave me alone with her." A pause. "I swear, you're going to regret this." Someone at the table sucked in a sharp breath. Ryan finally let go of Blair and turned toward me. He didn't look nervous. If anything, he frowned slightly, as though he were the one who had just been betrayed. "Audrey," he said. "I never wanted it to come to this." I looked down at my phone. Sawashidan Shabafen. The housing portal was still open on the final page. Emergency transfer approved. New room. East Annex, RLC. Access to my old apartment would deactivate automatically at Sawashidan Sishawofen. 87 minutes left. In my previous life, those 87 minutes had destroyed everything. Back then, I had rushed for Maddie's laptop. A chair went over. Nicole screamed. Blair stumbled back, and Ryan stepped in front of her. The clip that spread across campus afterward was only 9 seconds long. What it didn't show was that the recording had been stitched together from 2 completely different conversations. What it did show was me charging forward with red eyes while Ryan held Blair, and everyone watched me like I had lost control. 3 days later, Nicole's missing diamond necklace turned up in my drawer. A silver laptop, labeled with my name, appeared beside my bed. A payment account that had received large transfers was registered under my identity. I explained until my voice was raw. Ryan sat in the investigation office and told everyone. "She has been under a lot of pressure lately. I've been trying to help her." It took one ruined life for me to understand something simple. Some people don't doubt your explanation because it sounds unbelievable. They doubt it because they've already chosen the version that is easier for them to believe. "Audrey." Ryan said my name again. I looked up. Blair had stepped out of his arms, but she was still standing at his side. My key lay in her open palm, the strip of blue tape around it, still the one I'd wrapped there myself. Last winter, I'd locked myself out, and Ryan had driven through the snow to bring me the spare. Once we got inside, he'd held my cold fingers and laughed, promising he'd never leave me standing outside alone again. Now he'd handed that key to the woman who slept in the bed beside mine. Blair's eyes were already red. "Audrey, I know this is hard for you to process." I set down my cup. She continued. "We really did try to handle this privately, but lately you've been. I don't think it is safe for anyone if we keep living together." Nicole stood beside the dessert table with her arms folded, her lips pressed white. Maddie's laptop camera was pointed straight at me. The red recording light was on. They were waiting. Waiting for me to cry. Waiting for me to yell. Waiting for me to yell. Waiting for me to lunge at someone. I stood slowly. Blair's shoulders immediately drew inward. Beautiful. Even the flinch had been rehearsed. I walked over and glanced down at the key. "Keep it." Blair froze. Ryan frowned. "Audrey," I looked at her. "You already took the boyfriend. I'd hate for you to go home empty-handed." Someone in the back snorted with laughter. Ryan's jaw tightened. Blair went pale for a second, then quickly recovered that soft, wounded expression. "This isn't about me and Ryan." "Of course it isn't." I slid the silver ring off my right hand. That finally changed Ryan's expression. It was the promise ring he'd given me the year before. He'd put it on my finger and told me that after graduation we'd find a place together, start our careers together, build a real adult life together. I held it between my fingers for 2 seconds. Beside us sat the clear raffle box for the charity event. I lifted my hand and dropped the ring inside. It hit the bottom with a clean little clink. Ryan stepped forward. "What are you doing?" The event volunteer instinctively snapped the lid shut over the box full of raffle tickets. I watched Ryan's hand reach out and stop in midair. "Donating it?" More laughter rippled through the room. This time, even Ryan's ears went red. "Audrey, don't turn this into some performance." I glanced at the phones raised all around us. "You should probably tell Maddie that." Maddie jerked her laptop screen downward like it had burned her. Blair took a breath. "Audrey, I just want you to go somewhere safe tonight. Once everyone's calmed down, we can talk." I nodded. No need to wait. She blinked. I picked up my coat. I've already moved out. For the first time all night, Ryan's face went completely blank. "What?" I didn't answer. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. "New room check-in confirmed." I turned toward the door. A chair scraped behind me almost immediately. Ryan followed me into the hallway. It was colder outside the ballroom. Motion sensor lights flicked on one by one as we walked. "Audrey, stop." I kept pressing the elevator button. "Where did you move?" "None of your business. I need to know." I turned around. "Why?" His mouth opened. Too fast. So fast he hadn't even prepared an excuse. "Your books are still in the apartment. I took them." "What about your laptop?" "Took that too." His eyes shifted barely. "But I saw it. Last time, I hadn't." The elevator chimed open. Ryan put one hand against the door. "You can't run away every time someone points out a problem." I looked at his hand. That hand had carried my luggage, fixed my mother's broken cabinet, and rested against my forehead, all night when I had a fever. Tonight, it had given my key to another woman. I held the door open button. "Relax." "What?" "I'm not running." I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm just moving somewhere you don't have a key to." His hand slowly slipped away from the elevator door. I went upstairs to finish packing. At Schieden Schitziefen, I stuffed my last sweater into my suitcase. At Schieden Arschisenfen, Blair texted me. "Please come back. We can handle this like adults." At Schieden Arschibafen, Nicole sent. "We need to talk about something missing." At Schieden Senschiefen, Maddie sent a voice message. "Audrey, don't make this worse." I answered none of them. Instead, I turned on my phone camera and filmed the entire room in one continuous shot, starting at the doorway. My desk, empty drawers, closet. Under the bed, the storage bins, I'd already cleared out. Behind the fake plant by the window sat a black router. A blue light blinked steadily. In my previous life, investigators had pulled that device from the exact same spot. Later, the silver laptop would appear beside it. But right now, there was nothing there. I held the camera still for 3 seconds. The upper right corner of the screen read, "Sau Schieden Senschiefen." I kept filming. No cuts. No pauses. At Schieden Senschiefen, I placed my old key in the exact center of the desk and took a photo. At Schieden Senschiefen, I zipped my suitcase shut. The moment I opened the door, Maddie was standing outside. She wasn't holding her phone. That was a first tonight. She looked at my suitcase, then past my shoulder at the now empty desk. "You're really leaving?" "Yup. You can't just move out like this." I smiled. "Wasn't that what all of you suggested 5 minutes ago?" Her mouth twitched. "Blair's going to think you're punishing her." "That is the smallest problem she has tonight." Maddie's expression hardened. "What does that mean?" The elevator arrived. I pulled my suitcase inside. Schieden Senschiefen. My West Hall access card turned gray on my phone. Access expired. I sent the screenshot to housing coordinator Rebecca Miles. Then uploaded the continuous video, the photo of the key, and my checkout confirmation. Schieden Senschiefen. The elevator doors closed. Maddie was still standing in the hallway. For the first time, she wasn't recording. She was just staring at me, like she'd suddenly realized that something they had expected to remain inside that room had grown legs and walked away. Schieden Senschiefen. I had barely dragged my luggage into East Annex, and my phone buzzed again. The system had automatically pushed an access alert from my old building. Temporary event access used for the West Hall service elevator. Cardholder, Ryan Callahan. I stood in the middle of my new room and stared at his name. Headlights from a passing car swept across the wall outside my window. I checked the time. Shardanin Senfin. Then I smiled. Ryan, I saved the screenshot. You're 18 minutes late. The next morning at Sedant Sherdilfin, Nicole posted a photo of an empty jewelry box in our apartment group chat. She wrote only one sentence. My grandmother's necklace is gone. 3 minutes later, Blair replied, please don't accuse anyone before we know the truth. 1 minute after that, she added, everyone is under a lot of stress right now. I was sitting on the edge of my new bed in East Annex, a piece of toast still between my teeth. In my previous life, those 2 messages were enough to put me on the Campus Anonymous forum. Nicole never named me. Blair didn't either. They didn't need to. They only needed everyone else to think of me on their own. Sure enough, someone in the group chat quickly asked, didn't somebody suddenly move out last night? I stared at the screen for 2 seconds, swallowed my toast, took a screenshot, and closed the chat. There was a knock at the door. My shoulders tensed instantly. Audrey, it is me, Rebecca. I checked the peephole before opening the door. Housing coordinator Rebecca Miles stood there, holding 2 coffees, with a maintenance worker beside her. The closet door in your new room is loose, she pointed to the man's work badge. I brought him with me so you'd know exactly who was coming into your room. My hand paused on the doorknob. Thank you. Rebecca handed me one of the coffees. West Hall is doing a room inspection at 8. Since you reported an unauthorized network device yesterday, information security is going with them. Do I need to be there? No. Once they finish the initial documentation, we'll contact you. She glanced at the unopened suitcase beside my bed. One more thing. Nicole has officially reported the necklace missing. I saw. She says you were the only one who left last night. I took a sip of coffee. It was too hot, and the tip of my tongue went numb. Rebecca watched me. What do you want to tell me? I filmed the room before I left. Good. My drawers were empty. Even better. Her tone stayed level. But don't make conclusions for the investigators. Let the evidence do that. I nodded. She started to leave, then turned back. Did someone try to reset your campus account last night? I looked at her. How do you know that? The security system flagged an abnormal attempt. I opened my phone immediately. At Shangwushardan Wushasifan, there had been 1 failed password reset request. The recovery email used to belong to Ryan. I'd removed it the night before. I stared at the notification and laughed once. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Nothing. I saved the screenshot to my evidence folder. Someone just had a much busier night than I did. At Badi and Sishararfin, I walked into media ethics, and the entire classroom went quiet for a beat. Some people looked down. Some pretended to flip through their notes. Others simply turned their phones face down on their desks. Caroline Grant stood at the front of the room. When she saw me, all she said was, "Morning, Audrey." Morning. She didn't ask whether I was okay. Oddly enough, that made it easier to breathe. Halfway through class, my phone vibrated twice inside my bag. I didn't look. After class, Dr. Grant stopped me. The University Investigation Office contacted me. I looked up. They asked whether you've ever done audio editing projects for class. They also asked what equipment Maddie checked out from the archive center last week. A digital recorder and 2 external hard drives. I know. I approved the checkout. She picked up a pen and tapped it against a sheet of paper twice. If someone brings you a recording and claims it is you, don't waste time arguing about whether the words sound like something you'd say. Then what do I ask for? The original file. She looked directly at me. Context is worth more than emotion. At Zodan Arshifen, I met Elena Morris in the investigation office. She was in her 40s, with short hair. On her desk sat 1 law manual, 1 recording device, and 2 pens. She didn't comfort me. She didn't accuse me either. She slid a photograph across the table. Nicole's diamond necklace was sealed inside a clear evidence bag. Where was it found? In the desk drawer you used in your former room. My stomach tightened. Last time, they'd hidden it at the bottom of one of my storage bins. This time, they'd even changed the location. Elena pushed over a second photo, a silver laptop. It sat beside the black router near the window. A white label was stuck to the lid. Audrey Collins Archive. I stared at the picture. That isn't my laptop. We're verifying ownership now. At Sheed and Senshlufen last night. My video shows that exact spot empty. We've reviewed the video. Elena slid a third sheet toward me. Access records. Sao Sheed and Sishufen. My building access ended. Shangwu Shardan Lin Senfen. Ryan used temporary event credentials to enter through the service elevator. Shangwu Shardan Shifen. Blair swiped back into the room. Shangwu Shardan Shabafin. Nicole entered. I stared at those three names and felt the pressure in my chest loosen one notch at a time. Elena tapped the first line with the tip of her pen. So right now, we have one question. Who went into the room after I left? Correct. She turned the page. And we have a second question, which is, the silver laptop first connected to the unauthorized network in your room at Shangwu Shardan Arsharfen. I didn't move. She looked up at me. By then, you'd been locked out of the building for 37 minutes. I ran my tongue over my dry lips. So, at this stage, we don't have evidence proving who placed those items. She paused. But we can already say it wasn't done by someone who had no access to that room after Sheed and Sishufen. I lowered my eyes and pinched the skin over my knee. It hurt. Good. I needed that little sting to convince myself this wasn't another dream. When I left the investigation office, Blair was standing at the far end of the hallway. She wore a light gray coat. I knew that coat. The year before, Ryan had gone shopping with me. I'd picked up the same one, checked the price, and put it back. Later, he told me it wasn't flattering anyway. Now Blair was wearing it. She spotted me and hurried over. Audrey. I stopped. Maddie stood about 15 feet away, phone held against her chest. Nicole was nowhere to be seen. I honestly don't know why your necklace was in the drawer, Blair said. I blinked. She froze too. My necklace. The color drained from her face. Nicole's, I meant Nicole's. Why are you nervous? I'm not nervous. Good. I stepped around her. She grabbed my sleeve, then immediately let go, as if she'd just remembered there were cameras in the hallway. Ryan only went in to pick up something you left behind. I turned back. I hadn't asked why Ryan went in. Her mouth snapped shut. Perfect. Another answer I hadn't even needed to ask for. I smiled at her. Thanks. For what? Saving me a question. By 1 in the afternoon, the anonymous campus forum already had a post claiming I'd run early because I knew the room was going to be searched. I didn't finish reading it. At Edernunsiefen, another post appeared. Just one screenshot. The university access log. Under it was one sentence. If she planted it, how did she do it after her access was dead? The comments refreshed by the dozens every minute. At Edernsharfen, Blair deleted her morning post about protecting everyone's privacy. At Edernsharfen, Nicole texted me, "Can we talk privately?" Before I answered, another message appeared. I didn't know you had already moved when they told me to report the necklace. My thumb stopped over the screen. They. Not she. Not Blair. They. I forwarded the message to Elena, then sent Nicole one reply. Talk to Elena. 5 minutes later, she unsent the first message. The second one stayed. I stared at it, and the corner of my mouth slowly lifted. They had been telling their story for less than a day. Someone was already forgetting her lines. Nicole didn't immediately turn on the others. She just started getting scared. The clearest sign came the next day in the dining hall when she saw me, turned too fast with her tray, and walked straight into the drink station. Iced tea splashed across half her skirt. Maddie stood beside her, looking furious enough to shove her into the trash can. Blair, meanwhile, was still performing. She walked toward me carrying 2 coffees, her hair tied loosely, the shadows beneath her eyes deliberately left uncovered. Several nearby tables went quiet at once. She set 1 cup in front of me, your usual. I looked at the coffee, then at Maddie 10 yards away. The lens of Maddie's phone was peeking out from behind a book. Is the coffee for me? I asked. Or is it another supporting actor in tonight's episode? Someone at the next table laughed. Maddie immediately laid her phone face down. Blair's fingers tightened around the cardboard sleeve. Audrey, I didn't come here to fight. Great. I'm trying to eat breakfast. You know the school is investigating our room now. Nicole cries, every day. Maddie is barely holding it together. Ryan didn't sleep all night because you suddenly moved out. I speared a piece of scrambled egg with my fork. Ryan had somewhere to sleep. Her face stiffened. Do you have to be like this? I looked up. Like what? Treating everyone like they're your enemy. I don't have the time. I tipped my chin toward Maddie. There are too many of you. The laughter around us was louder this time. At last, a little moisture appeared in Blair's eyes, perfectly controlled. Just enough to wet her lashes. Audrey, you weren't like this before. You weren't kissing my boyfriend before. Her mouth twitched. I picked up my tray and stood. Then she lowered her voice. The first thing Ryan asked last night was where you'd moved. I paused for 1 second. She saw it, and something satisfied flashed in her eyes. You think he chose you? I asked. Her smile disappeared. What does that mean? Nothing. I glanced at her coat. Cute jacket. Nice to know somebody finally bought it for me. Then I walked away. Behind me, a coffee cup hit the table with a hard thunk. Later that morning, the university issued a safety notice confirming that unauthorized recording equipment had been discovered in West Hall. No room number, no names. Within 30 minutes, everyone still knew it was our floor. At noon, Sophie Turner came to find me at the archive center. She stood outside the counter, pale as paper. I've already spoken to Elena. I closed the folder in front of me. Good. She didn't leave. Audrey, there is something else I need to tell you. I looked at her. If it is related to the investigation, you should tell Elena too. I did. She swallowed. Maddie recorded me. My fingers stopped moving. When, last fall, in the prep area for a campus event, I had paid for an essay editing service once. Her voice dropped lower and lower. Latter, I wanted out. Maddie sent me a screenshot she'd taken while I was adjusting my clothes in a changing area. Nothing explicit, but embarrassing enough that I never wanted anyone else to see it. I came around from behind the counter. Then what? Blair told me to refer 2 new clients, she said. If I did that, nobody had to make things ugly. What about Ryan? Sophie went even paler. Blair said, Ryan could see the student organization event lists, so I shouldn't try to disappear. She gripped the strap of her backpack. She kept telling people you were the one running everything. Why me? Because you needed money, because you work at the archive center, because you understand the systems. My throat tightened. In my previous life, I'd heard those accusations hundreds of times. This time, they were coming from the mouth of someone else who was terrified. Did you believe it? Sophie nodded once, then immediately shook her head. At first, yesterday, Maddie told me to tell Elena I'd seen you tampering with the camera in the air vent. Did you? No. What did you tell her? That I hadn't. Her eyes filled. Then she reminded me she still had that screenshot. I pushed a sticky note toward her and wrote down Elena's office number. Don't bargain with Maddie. Don't delete anything. And don't try to recover old chats yourself. You don't hate me. I looked at her for 2 seconds. A little. She stared at me. You repeated things they said about me. You told people I might be behind it. Of course, I'm angry. Her face fell. But your job right now isn't to get me to forgive you. I pressed the note into her hand. Go finish telling the truth. At 2 that afternoon, Ryan cornered me in the lobby of the archive center. He didn't come past the entrance. He deliberately stayed where the security cameras could see him. We need to talk. We can talk here. He glanced around at the other people nearby. Do you really need an audience? You didn't seem worried about that when you kissed her in public. He closed his eyes for a moment. Audrey, I don't know what those devices in the room were. What about your silver laptop? Blair told me you'd left it behind. It isn't in my video. I haven't seen the video. You watched me film it. I thought you were making a scene. I laughed softly. Ryan's expression darkened. You're enjoying this now, aren't you? Enjoying what? Watching everyone get investigated. I stared at him. Ryan, I moved out. Everything after that happened because the rest of you kept going. He stepped closer. Blair didn't tell me everything. You gave her my key. It was just to show her I trusted her. With my room. He said nothing. Why did you give her my key before I even decided to move? His eyes shifted. The lobby doors opened as a few students came in. He lowered his voice. You're twisting this. Then explain it. He didn't. At Sidian that afternoon, Elena asked me to come back to the investigation office. Dr. Grant was there too. An external hard drive sat on the table. The same one Maddie had checked out from the archive center A few days earlier, a technician opened an audio project directory. File names filled the screen. Audrey Confession Vouf. Audrey Confession Vouf. Audrey Confession. Audrey Confession Dryan. Clean. My stomach dropped. The technician opened the editing timeline, the supposed statements I built it. They all answer to me, and if anyone talks, I'll ruin them. Had been taken from 6 separate recordings. One line came from an archive training video I'd recorded. One came from me joking about the automated book cart. The last came from a game night with Ryan, when I jokingly said I was going to destroy him, in the game. Dr. Grant pressed her lips into a thin line. The technician continued. Project history shows the files were created on Maddie's device. Blair's account opened them. A separate student organization account downloaded all 3 versions. The screen refreshed. An account name appeared. Ryan Callahan. For a second, I forgot to breathe. The technician kept talking, but all I could see was the word clean. Ryan had listened to version 1, version 2, version 3. Then he downloaded the one that sounded most like me. A chair scraped across the floor. It took me a second to realize I was the one who had stood up. Elena, I need the restroom. Once the door shut behind me, I braced both hands on the sink. The faucet wasn't running. My hands still shook. My phone's photo app chose that moment to surface a memory from a year ago. Ryan stood in my mother's kitchen, flour on his cheek, holding up a badly burned pie and grinning at the camera. I stared at it for 3 seconds. Delete. Recently deleted. Delete again. Someone knocked lightly on the restroom door. Audrey, Dr. Grant's voice. I'm fine. I didn't ask that. I looked up at the mirror. My eyes were bright red. Give me a minute. Okay. I washed my face and went back out. Elena didn't ask whether I was ready. She simply turned the screen toward me again. There is one more issue. I sat down. What? Ryan didn't only download the recordings. She opened another log. After you changed your banking security settings yesterday, an old device attempted to regain access to your payment account. The device name appeared on the screen. Ryan's phone. I stared at the words. This time, I didn't stand up. I just shoved one hand into my coat pocket and gripped my phone as hard as I could, because suddenly I remembered something. That phone's old lock screen passcode had been my birthday. The bank's full records didn't arrive until the following afternoon. Elena and I sat in a windowless conference room with 2 paper cups on the table. One coffee had already gone cold. The investigator opened the account application midway through the file. This account was created 18 months ago using your name, your student ID photo, and your driver's license information. I turned the pages one by one. The mailing address was a private mailbox outside town. The last 4 digits of the recovery number belonged to Nicole. The card paying the mailbox fee came from a company account connected to Blair's family. The device used to upload the identity verification video had connected to the network in our old apartment. The final field showed a one-time verification code. The receiving phone number belonged to Ryan. Time. I stared at the timestamp. What date? Elena slid the page lower. September 6. I laughed once. Very quietly. Elena didn't ask why. I opened my old message backup. That day, I'd been in another state with my mother for a post-op follow-up. At Shufen, Ryan had texted me, "Can't sleep. Wish you were here." At Shufen, I'd replied, "Miss you too." The bank log showed Ryan entering the verification code at Shufen. At Arshaifen. The account was successfully opened. I laid the 2 records side by side. Elena glanced at them. "What are you thinking?" "Nothing." I pointed to the times. "I'm just wondering which one of us he answered first." Elena was silent for a second, then put both pages into the evidence file. That afternoon, Ryan formally requested mediation. I agreed. With 3 conditions. A university legal advisor had to be present. The entire session had to be recorded. And Blair was not allowed in the room. Ryan arrived wearing the gray coat I'd given him the year before. A tiny loose thread showed at the collar. I used to trim things like that without even thinking. Today, I saw it and left it alone. The first thing he said after sitting down was, "I thought this was between the 2 of us. It isn't anymore." The recording light came on. Ryan rubbed his fingers together. "I admit what happened between Blair and me was wrong." "How long?" He looked up. "What? How long have you 2 been together?" 3 months. Under the table, my toes curled inside my shoes. 3 months. On my mother's birthday, he'd sat beside her cutting the cake. 3 months. He'd helped me revise an important project application and told me not to be nervous. 3 months. And all that time, piece by piece, he'd been handing another woman my key, my documents, my account access, and my schedule. I picked up my pen. Okay, next. Ryan stared at me like he'd expected me to ask whether he loved Blair. The laptop, I said. Did you bring it into West Hall? Yes, but Blair told me you'd left it behind. Did you put it beside the router? Yes. Connect it to the network. He hesitated. I was just doing what she told me. Did you download the edited recordings of me? Maddie sent them. I wanted to see whether she was exaggerating. All 3 versions. I wanted to hear the differences. The last file you downloaded had clean in the name. I didn't name it. Did you tell her which one sounded most like me? Ryan's throat moved. The legal advisor looked up. I didn't rush him. Finally, Ryan said. I told her the third one sounded the most natural. The room went so quiet I could hear the air conditioning. I set down my pen. What about the bank verification code? Blair said she was applying for some surprise funding for you. I stared at him. What kind of funding requires opening a payment account? I didn't know how the process worked. So at 2 a.m, you got a verification code and handed it over without asking a single question. She said it was about to expire. Did you give her a photo of my ID? She said the application needed it. When? Last spring. So before the account was opened, Ryan covered his face with both hands. Audrey, I know how bad this sounds now. I laughed. Now, he lowered his hands. She lied to me about a lot of things. Did she trick you into kissing her too? I take responsibility for that. How generous. The legal advisor gave a small cough. Ryan's face flushed. I really did care about you. I looked at him. You cared about the access I gave you. That is not true. You had my key. You were my recovery email. You had a photo of my ID. You knew my work schedule and my class schedule. You even knew when my mother was out of state. Ryan opened his mouth. I kept going. What did Blair have? He said nothing. Money, I asked. Connections. A social circle that made you feel more important on campus. That is not fair. Then answer me. He didn't. I leaned back in my chair. You didn't choose the wrong woman. Ryan's eyes turned red. You used one woman's life to make things easier for another. I never meant for you to get expelled. The sentence landed between us. The legal advisor looked up. I didn't move either. When did I say I was going to be expelled? The color slowly drained from Ryan's face. I just meant. You just said you never meant for me to get expelled. Everyone knows disciplinary action is possible now. Now they do. I held his gaze. What did you know back then? Ryan turned his face away. The mediation ended early. He didn't look at me when he left. When I stepped outside, Blair was actually waiting for him beside a bench across the street. The moment she saw Ryan, she stood. What did you tell her? Ryan didn't answer. Ryan, you never told me Audrey moved out early. I didn't know she'd actually leave. You said she'd come back and make a scene. Blair's expression tightened. She always used to. Ryan lowered his voice. Now that laptop is completely on me. You were the one who carried it in. Because you told me to. People nearby started turning their heads. Blair immediately lowered her own voice. Not here. Where would you rather perform? Ryan snapped, pulling his arm away from her. I stood on the steps and almost applauded. Elena came out behind me. Stop watching. 10 more seconds. You were very composed in there. I'm still human. She gave me a sideways look. 10 seconds. I actually counted 10. Blair started crying. Ryan didn't hug her. That part was worth seeing. Then I turned and left. At 9 that night, Maddie's attorney contacted the investigation office. Maddie was willing to turn over a private backup drive. No guarantees requested. No promises in exchange. Her only condition was that her own personal materials be sealed separately. When Elena called to tell me, I was sitting on my bed eating cold pizza. What is the drive called? I asked. I heard papers moving on her end. The label is pink. There is one word written on it. What word? Insurance. I put the pizza back in the box. The heating pipe outside my room knocked 3 times. I stared at the wall. In my previous life, Maddie had never turned over this drive, which meant that from this moment on, even I didn't know what came next. No one was safe on the pink hard drive. Maddie had recorded Blair, Nicole, Ryan, even herself. Her folders were neatly organized. Clients, money, media, backup, insurance. The first time Elena opened the internal recordings, 6 people sat in the conference room. I took the seat farthest from the screen. The first recording was from the previous summer. Blair's voice came through clearly. Audrey is perfect. Her background is clean, and she doesn't have family who can storm in and pressure the university. She is on scholarship. People will believe she needs the money. Maddie asked, "What if she reports us?" Blair laughed softly. "She hates conflict. She'll explain first." I looked down at my hands. My nails were cut short. In my previous life, that was exactly what I'd done. Explained again and again. Nicole's voice was on the second recording. "She has started checking her drawers lately," Blair replied. "Then make it look like she has been suspicious of us for a long time." On the third recording, Ryan's voice appeared. Cold sweat broke across my back. "I don't want anything to do with the camera stuff," Blair said. "You already used the client list. That is different." "Of course it is. That helped you." There was the scrape of a chair. Ryan lowered his voice. "I never agreed to put those things in her room. You gave me the key. That was for emergencies. This is an emergency." A few seconds passed. Then Ryan finally said, "If she loses housing, the scholarship office will investigate automatically. But don't attach any camera files to my account." No one in the conference room spoke. I stared at the corner of the table, so he had known. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't that Blair had fooled him about everything. He'd simply drawn a line around how much he was willing to be involved, and I was outside that line. Elena paused the recording. "Do you need a break?" I shook my head. "Keep going." The next item wasn't an audio file. It was a spreadsheet. Title, Audrey Response Plan. Elena read the first line aloud. "If Audrey cries, emotional instability." Second line. "If Audrey raises her voice, aggression." Third, "If Audrey refuses to talk, emotional punishment." Fourth, "If Audrey moves out, consciousness of guilt." Fifth, "If Audrey stays, ongoing threat to roommates." Someone set down a pen. Elena continued. "If Audrey reports missing property, paranoia." "If Audrey contacts housing first, weaponizing policy." A laugh escaped me. Everyone looked over. I covered my mouth. "Sorry," Elena said nothing. "I just want to know." I pointed at the spreadsheet. What exactly was I supposed to do? No one in the room had an answer. My eyes burned as I laughed again. For years in my previous life, I'd wondered, what if I hadn't cried? What if I hadn't sent those messages? What if I hadn't grabbed for the laptop? What if I'd stayed calmer? The spreadsheet answered all of it. There had never been a correct response. I stood, filled a paper cup at the water dispenser, took a sip, and came back. "Keep going." The drive held one final folder. After Audrey. Inside were plans for what the 4 of them would do after I was forced out of school. Blair planned to compete for the research position I was applying for. Ryan planned to campaign in the student organization election by talking about recovering from an unstable relationship. Maddie planned to make a short documentary about online harassment. Nicole planned to move the payment account under the name of another former client. At the very bottom was a photo of my scholarship certificate. Blair had handwritten one sentence across it. "She won't need this after Friday." I stared at the words. My phone buzzed. A notification from the anonymous campus forum. A new post read, "Audrey knew the search was coming. That is why she ran." I opened it. The top comment said, "Then why did everyone else keep planting things after she left?" The second, "Can somebody explain why Ryan had the access card?" The third, "Blair deleted 3 posts today." "Girl, pick a story." I kept scrolling. Elena tapped the table with one finger. "Stop reading the comments." I put my phone face down. 5 seconds later, I picked it up again. She looked at me. "One last one. Everyone says that. How do you know?" "Because everyone reads the comments." I couldn't help laughing. That afternoon, the university held a preliminary hearing. Blair, Ryan, Maddie, and Nicole sat on the opposite side of the room. For the first time, none of them sat together. Nicole was farthest from Blair. A list of files from the pink drive sat in front of Maddie's attorney. Ryan didn't look at Blair once. 10 minutes in, Nicole cracked first. The investigator asked, "Who gave the necklace to Blair?" Nicole's lips shook. "I did." "Why?" "She said it was only supposed to create a temporary misunderstanding. She said once Audrey moved out, we'd make the necklace turn up again." Blair whipped around. "That is a lie." Nicole burst into tears. "Last night you told me that if this went bad, it was Maddie and Ryan's operation, and you'd never even touched the equipment." Maddie actually laughed. "Funny. She told me all the money was Nicole." Blair's attorney immediately demanded that they stop speaking to one another. Ryan pressed a hand to his forehead. Sitting across from them, I nearly asked whether anyone had popcorn. By the end of the preliminary hearing, the university had suspended all 4 of them from campus housing and student organization positions, and issued stricter no-contact orders. Blair walked out, still wearing the same pale victim expression. Then, a reporter called out, "Why did you write a plan in advance for how to explain Audrey's behavior after she moved out?" Blair stopped walking. A second reporter followed up. "Is the After Audrey folder real?" The lawyer Blair's father had stepped in front of the cameras immediately. Ryan came out through another door. The reporters moved toward him. "Did you know Audrey could lose her scholarship?" Ryan paused for 2 seconds. "I was angry at the time. I said things that didn't reflect what I actually wanted." I walked out behind him. He saw me, Audrey. I stopped behind the security line. He raised his voice. "You know, I never wanted any of this to go this far." I looked at him. "Then how far did you want it to go?" He went silent. "Just far enough for me to lose my housing." Every reporter's recorder swung toward us. "Or just far enough for me to lose my scholarship." Ryan's face changed instantly. His attorney hurried over and pulled him away. I didn't say anything else. That night, Ryan posted a video. He said he'd made the wrong choice between 2 people who mattered to him. He said he'd been influenced by complicated emotions and bad information. He said he had never wanted Audrey to suffer any real harm. At the end of the video, he looked straight into the camera and said, "I hope Audrey remembers who I was before all of this." I watched the entire thing from my bed in East Annex. Then, I pushed the pizza box away. A text from an unknown number appeared. "You think you won because Maddie panicked." A second message came right after it. "You have no idea what Ryan said about you when you weren't there." I stared at the screen. Then came a third. "Ask him why he never broke up with you." I didn't reply, but my finger stayed over that sentence for a long time, because only then did I realize there was an even uglier question underneath everything else. Ryan and Blair had been having an affair for 3 months. Together, they'd targeted my housing, my accounts, and my scholarship. But before their plan began, Ryan had never intended to break up with me. How long had he planned to keep me around? On the day of the final hearing, Ryan arrived 20 minutes before I did. He sat at the far end of the hallway alone. 3 months earlier, he and Blair had stood together at a party, looking like 2 people who had finally chosen each other. Now Blair was in another conference room. Nicole had refused to share an attorney with her. Maddie was submitting everything through her own counsel. Ryan saw me and stood. The no-contact order kept him several yards away. He called my name across the hall. "Audrey." I kept walking. "I never planned to break up with you." That made me stop. For the first time, his face had lost that calm, reasonable expression he always wore. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. "And that is supposed to be good news?" I asked. "No, I just want you to know Blair keeps saying I chose her, but it wasn't like that." "So you were sleeping with her while planning to stay with me?" At the other end of the hallway, someone suddenly became very interested in their phone. Ryan went pale. "I know how that sounds, Ryan." I cut him off. "Lately your favorite phrase is, how it sounds." He stopped talking. "It doesn't sound awful." I looked at him. "It is awful." Then I turned and entered the hearing room. The hearing lasted 6 hours. I only remember pieces of it. Nicole admitted first that she had taken out the necklace herself. She said Blair had told her that once I got angry, everything else would fall into place. Maddie admitted she had edited the fake recordings. The investigator asked, "Who told you to make them?" "Blair." "Who listened to the different versions?" "Blair and Ryan." Ryan's attorney asked. Did Ryan ever explicitly tell you to fabricate Audrey's voice? Maddie shook her head. No. Ryan had just started to relax when Maddie added, he only told me the third version sounded the most like her. Ryan snapped his head toward her. Maddie, she shrugged. You did. Ryan's attorney closed his eyes. When it was Ryan's turn, he admitted the key, the laptop, the verification code, and the student lists. But he still insisted he hadn't known about the entire framing plan. The investigator projected a recovered chat log onto the screen. Ryan, make sure the exam folder isn't open when they find the laptop. It has to look like she hid it. Blair, I know, Ryan, and no camera files under my account. Blair, you're very brave when the risk belongs to Audrey. The room went silent. Ryan read the messages twice. I don't remember writing that, the investigator asked. Are you claiming the account records were falsified? Ryan looked toward his attorney. His attorney didn't answer for him. Ryan's shoulders slowly collapsed. No, so you're not denying that you wrote them? A pause. No. By the time it was Blair's turn, she had no tears left. She described Nicole as greedy, Maddie as obsessed with control, and Ryan as too ambitious for his own good. She described herself as the one person who had been trying to hold everyone together. The investigator asked, Then why does your response plan label Audrey as the problem no matter what she does? Blair clenched her jaw. Because we were afraid of her. Did she threaten you? Not directly. Did she steal from you? No. Secretly record you? No. Control your money? No. Interfere with your studies? Blair's lips moved. She was always judging people. How? She noticed what we spent. She noticed when we went out. She noticed when we left everything until the last minute. She didn't say anything, but the way she looked at us. The investigator paused for several seconds. So, what frightened you was what she might think of you. Blair's breathing grew faster. She had everything. No one spoke. Everything meaning what? Professors liked her. The archive center wanted her. The research program picked her. Whenever Ryan had a problem, she was the first person he called. Ryan looked up. Blair seemed unable to stop now. She didn't even want those things as badly as I did. She never had to fight for them. She just stood there, and everyone kept saying she worked hard. She was dependable. She deserved it. I looked at her. I did work for it. Blair turned sharply toward me. I know. She said it too quickly, too loudly. The entire room went still. She realized what she'd admitted, and all the color disappeared from her face. I didn't need to say another word. She had torn off the last piece of her own pretty wrapping. Before the hearing ended, I submitted a one-page statement. I didn't write about our friendship. I didn't write about how many assignments I'd helped Blair revise, how many late nights I'd sat with Maddie, how many times I'd lent Nicole my car, or how good Ryan had once been to me. I wrote down times. 11:36分. Continuous room video shows empty drawers, and no silver laptop. 11:45分. My building access expires. 12:03分. Ryan enters. 12:11分. Blair enters. 12:18分. Nicole enters. 12:22分. The silver laptop first connects to the unauthorized network. I set the paper down. You don't have to believe I'm nice, I told the committee. You don't even have to like me. I looked up at them. You only have to believe that timestamps don't change depending on who cries more convincingly. Blair's face twitched. 2 hours later, the decision was announced. All 4 were expelled from the university. The financial, privacy, and academic violations were referred for further, outside investigation. Nicole cried. Maddie closed her eyes and let out a long breath. Blair didn't shed a single tear. Ryan stared at the table. When we left the room, he finally called after me. Audrey, please. A staff member stayed between us. Ryan didn't try to come closer. Tell them I'm not the worst one. I stared at him for several seconds. I almost laughed. Even now, he was still ranking himself against everyone else. You knew I could lose my housing. I knew. You knew my scholarship could be investigated. I was angry. You knew my identity had been used to open an account. I thought it was being done for you. I nodded. Then you've already answered your own question. His eyes turned red. I can change. Then change. A flash of hope appeared in his face. I added, somewhere else. The hope disappeared. I don't need to sit beside you while you learn how to treat people decently. I walked away. Blair was outside waiting for a car her father had sent. When she saw me, she asked only one thing. Did you know all along? I thought of the room from my previous life, the screenshots, the explanations no one believed. I knew what staying would cost me. How did you know? I didn't answer. The car arrived. She stood there, and for the first time, my silence gave her nothing. 6 weeks later, the bank formally cleared the fraudulent account from my records. My scholarship remained intact. Dr. Grant helped reschedule my interview for the research program. The day the interview confirmation arrived, I was eating instant noodles in my new single room in East Annex. An email popped onto my screen. Congratulations. I stared at it for a full 5 seconds. Then I called my mother. She screamed so loudly on the other end that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Could you maybe be a little quieter? No. I laughed until tears ran down my face. Someone knocked on my door. My shoulders tensed automatically. It is me. My mother's voice called from the hallway. And I brought soup. I froze. She'd arrived early without telling me. I opened the door. She was carrying 2 bags, with a small wooden sign tucked under one arm, for the new room. She hung it on the inside of my door. Knock first. I looked at it. Very polite. She pulled out a marker and added another line underneath. Seriously. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the door. A few months later, the university formally changed its procedures for emergency room, transfers, and digital evidence handling. I attended exactly 1 feedback meeting. I didn't give a speech. I didn't try to turn myself into an inspirational story. I only said, the next person who decides to move out shouldn't automatically become a suspect just because they chose to leave. On the last day of the spring semester, I passed West Hall. Room Lo Tr Gonsin, D new residence. Paper flowers were taped to the door, along with a crooked sign that read, "Please knock, we may be sleeping." Someone inside burst out laughing. I stood there for less than a minute. I didn't go in. I didn't take a picture. I only reached into my bag and touched my new key. The metal edge pressed against my fingertip. The first time I gave Ryan a key, I thought trust meant giving someone unlimited access to my life. Later, I learned that love isn't an all-access pass, and this second chance hadn't been given to me so I could come back and destroy everyone who had hurt me. I had simply left 18 minutes earlier than I had the first time. Those 18 minutes didn't magically make me smarter. They didn't turn me cold. They didn't make the world suddenly fair. They only gave me one chance to stand up before the story they had written for me could truly begin, pick up my own suitcase, and walk out. I turned and headed downstairs. No one followed me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Mom wanted to know what I felt like eating for dinner. I typed back as I walked. Anything but pizza. Her reply came instantly. Finally learned something. I laughed out loud. Sunlight poured through the stairwell window. My key was still in my hand. This time, no one else had a spare. Tell me, darlings, have you ever met a man whose moral compass is so spectacularly broken that he thinks setting a limit on how much he destroys your life somehow makes him the good guy? Let's take a long, hard look at Ryan. He was perfectly fine with handing over Audrey's key, her identity, and her future to his mistress, but drew the line at camera files because he didn't want the risk attached to his name. He actually wanted a medal for saying, "I only wanted you evicted, not expelled." A man like that doesn't love you. He just loves the convenience of using you as a human shield. And then there is Blair, wrapped in a stolen coat and weaponized fragility. She played the soft, wounded victim while meticulously orchestrating financial fraud. Why? Because she was absolutely terrified of a woman who didn't have to scheme to be excellent. People like Blair can't stand it when your mere existence highlights their mediocrity. Notice how quickly that fragile little alliance crumbled the second they faced actual consequences. Thieves have no loyalty, my dear, only shared panic. But the most chilling part of this story isn't the betrayal. It is that response plan spreadsheet. We see this exact psychological trap set for women in real life every single day. If you cry, you're emotionally unstable. If you yell, you're aggressive. If you defend yourself, you are paranoid. If you stay quiet, you are punishing them. Society loves to rig the game so that no matter how a woman reacts to abuse, she is labeled the villain. So, what is the ultimate power move? You stop playing their game. You don't perform for their cameras. You don't try to prove your worth to parasites. Audrey realized that she didn't need a grand, dramatic revenge. She just needed 18 minutes. A timestamp and a locked door. Ladies, your love, your trust, and the spare key to your life are not community property. Never let a mediocre man or a jealous friend convince you that holding them accountable makes you the bad guy. The girl in our story has already taken back everything that was hers. Tell me, sitting in front of this screen, are you ready to rewrite your own script? I am Nova, wishing you sweet dreams tonight and tomorrow. A phoenix, rising from the ashes.